Oh, hadn't mentioned it, very important. Labels, the little popsicle sticks, that's what they're for. You can see at the bottom of this tray, I have each thing labeled as to what it is. And a lot of times with greens, I can pretty much tell what it is, but I have like 5 different kinds. I love kale, I have about 5 different varieties, so I try to keep a note of those because I can't, other than the red ones, I can't always tell them apart. Next. Then, at some point, you're going to pot these up into a larger pot after true leaves appear. And again, once they're at this size, they usually go in a seed tray, a tray that's about a 10 by 20 inch tray. And I try to continue to water from the bottom. I find the greens, like lettuce and kale and those, are not very particular. I find that damping off can be a real problem with tomato seedlings. They seem to be more fragile. And what a friend has said before, to have the top sort of dry and moist from the bottom, where the roots are, and that cuts down on the chance of that fungus setting in and cutting your plant off. If you go out one day and all your plants are over like that, that's the damping off process. And it's there are 2 different kinds of fungus that cause that, and it just cuts them off. The stem hits the soil. And after most of our potting mixes now have fertilizer in them, which is adequate. If they don't, then probably by the time they go on the ground, they're going to be needing some fertilizer. Next. These are some of the pots that I reuse year after year. Wash them, sanitize them every year. Next. You know, anybody know what that is? Yeah. Again, I think is I've got a PowerPoint on dahlias and I've got a PowerPoint on seed starting, and I think they got together at some point and started sharing. Hardening off. Who knows what hardening off is? Who wants to explain? Okay.
Oh, it's a process of taking your seedlings out into the sun for a little bit each day before you plant them outside, so they get used to the sun, the wind, the elements.
Absolutely. That's absolutely correct.
Yeah.
It's a way of gradually exposing your seedlings to the outdoors. They've been raised inside in a very controlled environment, and you want to, in a big word here, gradually expose them to outside conditions. Next. Cold frames. A lot of people use cold frames. They will, but again, even here you have to transition them slowly. Some people actually start their seeds in a cold frame, and it depends on where you live. You can do that. I can't do that. It gets too cold for anything to. It gets too cold at night. Next. That's a homemade cold frame. This could be a homemade cold frame as well. Not hard to make. Next. And this is an example, you know, if you want to have a little cold frame that you buy from a store somewhere, this is an example of that. The critical thing with any cold frame is what? You've got to go out and, in New Mexico in particular, you've got to go out and open up during the day, because our sun it gets so intense that you'll just fry everything in there. And then you've got to remember to close it at night. I carry my plants out to the deck. So what is the potential failing here? Well, if I've got a whole deck full of plants, I don't have any problem remembering. If I just have one tray sitting out there in a chair and forget it, and it freezes, and how many times have I done that? Too many. But I move plants out to the deck, then I bring them in. Then I move them out, then I bring them in. This time of year, they're all inside. But when I get into April, that's when I start doing this. And it's good exercise. Next. Next, I think you're getting the theme here. When to plant outside. The main thing is the soil has to be warm. If you plant a tomato plant out and the soil is too cold, it probably won't die, but it also won't grow. So you usually want a temperature of at least 55 degrees. A lot of plants that are warm seasons plants would prefer at least 60 or 70 degrees. That takes a long time in the mountains. So I'm going to talk about some of the things I do to get ahead of that. Next. So when you're going to transplant to the garden, you're going to prepare your soil, you're going to check the temperature, you're going to consider mulches, you're going to consider protections, and you're going to be feeding once they're outside. Next. Soil thermometer. I don't know if they still sell them in the store here. That's where I got mine. I check the soil temperature. And because there's no point in putting something out if the soil's still so cold it won't grow. You can warm the soil using some plastic. I find that you all know about walls of water? You fill these little things with, they're about this high, about this big around, about this tall. They have little cells, you fill them with water. I set them outside. I put them in the beds about 2 weeks before I'm ready to plant out. And if I really want to get a good effect, I throw row cover over them. I haven't put anything in the soil yet. They are actually helping me warm the bed. They're also warming up. And so I can usually get my tomatoes out by the middle of May. Now, in Albuquerque, Kathy, when do you put your tomatoes out in Albuquerque?
Mid-April, the 1st of May.
Yeah, in Albuquerque, do you protect them? Or just watch the weather?
I use well waters initially, yes.
Yeah, so you use a wall of water too. It's a wonderful protection from both wind and cold. Next. You can do something as simple as cut off plastic jug to provide some protection. Some people have had great success with that. I don't have enough of those jugs. I mean, this is the only jug I have. But you can give it a try. The walls of water work really well, though. Next. You use floating row cover, ROW cover. And here this is being used with just a PVC pipe. You can tell this is actually well into the season. And people are always asking me what this is. This is something that doesn't work. It was to keep gophers out. I've now found that the only way to keep gophers out is welded wire mesh in the bottom of the bed. Because we have gophers everywhere. And I tried that and found out the hard way that it doesn't really work. Next. And this is what you should see at the end of the season. All these things were produced. And again, look at the variety here. And this is the kind of variety you can have if you take the time to grow from seed. Next. And that's it.